December 30th, 1999, the eve of a new millennium. Across the world, people were popping champagne corks, waiting for the clock to strike midnight on the year 2000. But in the rural fields of Welch, Oklahoma, time was about to stop dead. In the early morning darkness, a fire truck raced down a gravel road. Smoke was billowing into the freezing sky. Firefighters arrived at a small mobile home on a patch of land off North 540 Road. The structure was already engulfed. They thought it was a tragic accident, a fire in a meth lab, a careless cigarette. But when the smoke cleared, they didn't just find ash and rubble. They found the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt Oklahoma for a quarter of a century. This is the case of Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman, the girls who went to a birthday party and never came home.
To understand the horror of December 30th, you have to understand the innocence of December 29th. Ashley Freeman was turning 16. She was a vibrant, tough kid living in a complicated world. Her parents, Danny and Kathy Freeman, lived in a white mobile home set back from the road. By all accounts, it wasn't a fancy life, but it was hers. To celebrate her birthday, she invited her very best friend in the whole world, Lauria Bible. Lauria was the only daughter of Jay and Lorene Bible. Where Ashley was rough around the edges, Lauria was described as the present, a bright, beautiful, bubbly teenager who loved animals and made everyone laugh. They were inseparable, the kind of best friends who finish each other's sentences. Lorene Bible, Lauria's mother, was hesitant about the sleepover. The Freeman property had a reputation. There were rumors of drugs, specifically methamphetamine. But Lauria insisted. Ashley was her best friend. You don't miss your best friend's 16th birthday. So Lauria packed her bag. She kissed her mom goodbye.
That question, what if, would become a prison that Lorene Bible would never fully escape. The girls spent the evening doing what 16-year-old girls did in 1999, listening to music, talking about boys. They had no idea that someone was watching them from the dark. Just before dawn on December 30, 1999, the phone rang at the Craig County Sheriff's Office. The Freeman home was on fire. When first responders arrived, the roof of the mobile home had already collapsed. It was a total loss. Inside the wreckage, they found the body of Kathy Freeman. Initially, it was assumed she died from the smoke, but the autopsy would tell a different, darker story. Kathy Freeman didn't suffocate. She had been shot in the back of the head, execution style. The hunt began for her husband, Danny Freeman. At first, investigators whispered that Danny might have done this. Maybe a murder-suicide? Maybe a drug deal gone wrong that he fled from. For days, the search was disorganized. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, OSBI, treated the property as a fire scene, not a homicide scene.
But the Bible family refused to wait. They were frantic. Lauria wasn't answering her pager. They drove to the Freeman property themselves. They began sifting through the debris with their bare hands. That's when Jay Bible found him. Danny Freeman. He wasn't on the run. He was buried under the charred wreckage. Like his wife, he had been shot in the back of the head. The sleepy town of Welch realized the truth. 2 teenagers were missing, and their parents had been executed. For years, the case went cold. The local sheriff's office was overwhelmed. The FBI was called in, but the leads seemed to go nowhere. It looked like the perfect crime. But there was a ghost in the evidence room. An insurance verification card. This card was found at the scene of the fire. It belonged to a woman who had no connection to the Freeman family. When police originally asked her about it, she said, "I don't know why my insurance card was there, but my boyfriend knows the Freemans." That boyfriend was a man named Phil Welch. That lead was dropped. The card was lost. For nearly 2 decades, it sat in a box, forgotten, while the families of Lauria and Ashley grew older, waiting for answers. It wasn't until 2018 that the case cracked open. Investigators Gary Stansel and the OSBI cold case team took a fresh look. They found the insurance card. They followed the trail of Phil Welch. Phil Welch was a ghost in the Ozarks. He lived in a trailer in Pitcher, Oklahoma, a toxic wasteland of abandoned mines and crumbling buildings. By the time investigators found him, he was dead. He had died in 2007 from ALS. But before he died, he liked to talk.
It turned out that Phil Welch, along with his associates David Pennington and a man named Ronnie Busick, had a dark secret. They had bragged about it. Over the years, witnesses came forward to tell a horrific tale. The story goes like this. On the night of December 29th, the 3 men drove to the Freeman home to collect a drug debt. Danny Freeman owed them money for methamphetamine. An argument broke out. According to Busick's later testimony, Danny Freeman reached for his .357 Magnum, but he wasn't fast enough. Phil Welch shot Danny and Kathy in the back of the head, execution style. Then, the men realized there were witnesses. 2 teenage girls, Ashley and Lauria, had seen everything. Investigators believe the girls ran. They escaped through a back door and hid in a field, lying flat on the freezing ground, trying not to breathe. But they were found. They were snatched. The men then set the mobile home on fire to cover up the evidence of the murder, hoping the flames would erase their sins. But the girls were not killed at the Freeman home. They were taken away. The worst part of this story, the detail that turns the stomach of even hardened homicide detectives, is what happened next. According to witness testimony and court affidavits, Lauria and Ashley were taken to Phil Welch's trailer in Pitcher, Oklahoma. They were kept alive for nearly 2 weeks. 2 weeks, from December 30th into early January 2000. As the world celebrated the new millennium, these 2 girls were held captive. They were tortured. They were drugged. They were repeatedly raped. Multiple witnesses told investigators that they were shown Polaroid photographs of the girls during that time. The photos showed Lauria and Ashley bound and gagged, alive, but in the midst of an unimaginable nightmare. The existence of those photos is the stuff of legend. The actual photos have never been recovered by police, but the testimony of those who saw them is enough to fill a 26-page affidavit that led to the eventual arrest of Ronnie Busick. Eventually, the men decided the girls were a liability. They had partied with them, brutalized them, but they couldn't let them go. It is believed that sometime in January 2000, Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman were killed. Their bodies have never been found. So where are the bodies? That is the $50,000 question. In 2020, the hammer finally fell. Ronnie Dean Busick, the last living suspect, was arrested. He was charged with 4 counts of murder. But Busick claimed he wasn't the shooter. He claimed he was the lookout, the getaway driver. He said he waited in the car while Phil Welch and David Pennington did the dirty work inside the trailer. To get a conviction, the prosecution made a deal that would shock the nation. They offered Busick immunity on the murder charges if he led them to the bodies of Lauria and Ashley. Busick led investigators on a grim scavenger hunt across the mining country of Kansas and Oklahoma. He pointed to root cellars. He pointed to abandoned wells. He pointed to mine shafts in the toxic region of Treese, Kansas. Dogs were brought in. Ground-penetrating radar was used. Cadaver dogs hit on scents. At one point in 2024, the FBI and OSBI swarmed a property in Pitcher, declaring it a crime scene. But every time, every single time, they came up empty.
They found dirt. They found rocks. They found rust. But they never found Lauria or Ashley. Ronnie Busick was 72 years old. He was facing life in prison. But because of the bodies deal, he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge, accessory to murder. In 2020, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Laureen Bible sat in that courtroom. She thought she was finally getting justice. She thought the man who helped kidnap her daughter would rot behind bars. She was wrong. In Oklahoma, criminals can earn good time credits. They can get credit for time served in county jail. And because Busick took a plea deal, the parole board saw him as low risk. In 2023, just 3 years into his 10-year sentence, Ronnie Busick walked free.
Laureen was devastated. She was furious. She watched the man who drove the getaway car for her daughter's killers leave prison and move into a nursing home in Tulsa, living out his final days in comfort. Her daughter, by contrast, was still missing, presumed to be at the bottom of a mine shaft filled with toxic water somewhere in the vast emptiness of the Midwest. Grief can paralyze you, but for Laureen Bible, grief became gasoline. She decided that while she couldn't bring Lauria back, she could make sure no other parent went through what she went through. She couldn't stand the idea of a murderer or an accessory to murder getting out early on a technicality. She teamed up with Representative Steve Bashore. They drafted a bill. It was simple, brutal, and necessary. House Bill 1001, Lauria and Ashley's Law. The law states that anyone convicted of accessory to first or second-degree murder must serve at least 85% of their sentence before they are eligible for parole. No good behavior shortcuts. No early release for overcrowding. But the road to justice is rarely straight. In 2024, the Oklahoma Senate refused to hear the bill. They claimed it would undermine criminal justice reform. They said Oklahoma had a problem with over-incarceration. Laureen Bible was blindsided. She had traveled to the Capitol, ready to fight, only to be told the fight was over before it started. But Laureen Bible doesn't know how to quit.
If you drive through Welch, Oklahoma today, you'll see a sign. It's a billboard with two faces frozen in time. Two teenagers who would be in their 40s now if they had lived. The case remains open. It is officially designated as a presumed homicide investigation. Gary Stansel, the investigator who has spent years chasing these ghosts, says it will take a miracle to find the girls now. The landscape has changed. Mines have collapsed. Rivers have risen. In early 2025, something shifted. The pressure from the public and the relentless advocacy of the Bible family paid off. Governor Kevin Stitt signed Lauria and Ashley's Law into effect. Starting in late 2025, accomplices to murder in Oklahoma will no longer get a free pass. It is a legacy carved from tragedy. Laureen Bible stood in the Oklahoma sun and watched the governor sign the paper. She said it gave her daughter's short life a reason. But the victory is hollow without closure. As of the recording of this documentary, the remains of Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman have not been found. The searches continue. In 2026, authorities were back.
But the memory of these two girls, one the life of the party, the other the loyal best friend, refuses to fade. Every year, on the anniversary of their disappearance, the community gathers at the Welch Civic Center. They light candles. They hug Laureen and Jay Bible. They look at the empty chairs. For 26 years, that mission has been a series of dead ends. But Laureen isn't looking for the killers anymore. She knows they are dead or dying. She is looking for peace. She is looking for a bone fragment in a mine shaft. She is looking for a Polaroid that proves the nightmare is over. The case of Lauria and Ashley is a reminder that justice isn't a sprint. It's a crawl through the rubble. It is the story of two girls who went to a birthday party and never came home, and a mother who vowed that the world would never forget their names. Lauria Bible, Ashley Freeman.
If you are listening to this and you know something, no matter how small, look at their faces, remember their names, and call the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Because in the cold ground of the Ozarks, someone is waiting to be found.